I'm taking the type of mother I am and I'm using that to parent the previous versions of myself. A part of that is letting go of my expectations of life, and a part of that is being the transitional space I was talking about before. Was I really feel like almost everything in my life was taken. One step at a time, in a consecutive 2 or 3 years, it was just consecutively like, that doesn't happen to people. That doesn't happen to people. That doesn't happen to people together. That I was finally left with myself. And it was at that moment that I realized whatever I put my energy into, the choices I make, the thoughts I have, the way I speak to myself, how I present myself, all of that is just me. And at that moment, you realize there's no one else to blame. Yes, all those things happen, but what happens from here on out, it's very clear, since I'm the only one here, it's all gonna be because of my doing. And I started looking at what I was doing a lot differently, like, but do you want the result of that action or that thought? Or why are you talking to yourself that? If nobody else is here to beat you down, why are you continuing that narrative?
Yeah.
And that's when I had to be like, okay, but where is this sourced from? So I had to go back to different versions of myself to be like, well, that was wrong though.
So as you're following through that, so as I'm thinking, my relationship with my mom has ran the spectrum in a lot of ways.
I think it should, right?
It should. But I think the part that is shifting as I'm getting older is, as I'm starting to look at the parts of myself that I judged, as I start to look at those parts differently, I'm also starting to look at the story that I was telling myself about my mom at that time differently. Because you've got more information, you've got more clarity, you've got more acceptance. And I think as those things that you discover start to integrate more into the storytelling, for me at least, it shifts how I'm telling stories about certain characters.
I like the how word.
At the what?
The how word.
Oh, the how word.
The second I said it, I was like, be mindful of where you live. Everybody's gonna hear Howard.
Because I was like, Howard. Did they say that at Howard University?
No, but the how. I like that intention with it, because I think with anything, it's easy to put it on other people.
Yeah.
But we're all just people. And I like the videos that I see all the time of mainly like our ages that are taking their parents on new experience type trips. And the takeaway is like, oh, I just realized like my mom or my dad is living life for the first time too. And I think that's so important to remember. Like especially if you're the oldest or the first or the only, like I was my mom's first, and she dealt with a lot, honestly, throughout the course of my life. And I have to understand that she didn't know. And she didn't have all the tools that I even have.
Yeah.
So I just don't have it in me, because I've had such an expansive life too. Like I don't have it in me to judge anybody for where you are.
Do you find it hard to not judge sometimes?
I did until I didn't. And I think the only thing that I called hard was the constant need to check myself until it became a new way.
What I appreciate about what you post is that a lot of it is human, meaning that it's vulnerable, meaning that it's flawed, meaning that it's not all figured out. And there's something really refreshing to me, because I feel like, oh, this is what the process looks like of doing the thing.
Yay. That's my whole goal.
Yeah. It feels like
show the process. We don't see the process enough. And I don't know what it looks like. And I feel like the day I went to Source and was like, it seems like every time I decide, you decide, I need something else. So let me just not decide anymore and just you tell me where to go. And I know we hear people say it all the time, and I know I'm also in the process, which I will forever be, but it works. The letting go and just It works.
You mentioned being in a transitional period in pretty much all of the significant ways.
That was real time too. I was gonna edit that part out, but I was like, it's real authentic for me to be like, oh wait, oh.
So I felt you connect to the feelings and let them drift you off.
It was real.
And then you were like, and we're back. And I was like, I relate to that so much. Based on how much you want to share, what's shifting and how are you managing that?
I've been avoiding this in so many different places, but like it is what it is. I started with, I think it was actually maybe the summer I was here the first time. The relationship I was in that I assumed was actually gonna last dissolved. I don't want to say this only because of the comments on your last podcast when I was here. I'm no longer in a relationship with my parents. That is their decision, not mine. My best friend, the person I consider my left lung, fought and is fighting the most aggressive form of breast cancer that we know. Then my job, became this thing. Everything just slowly, the biggest pieces of my life slowly just left. And that's why I said it was just me. So in looking at this transition right now that I was talking about on that post, it was very much the duality of looking at all of this stuff, realizing I met it. I met every single one. My therapist says, you sit down in the middle of the fire and ask how we can cool things down. And I was like, okay. She's like, but you do that with yourself. And I'm like, well, that's good because I've needed that. And it was at that moment that I realized I was looking for that in other people, all the other people.
The ability to
cool down the fire.
Cool down the fire.
And so I had to do it for myself, as we need to know how to do for ourselves. And I just started seeing life meet me in ways that I have written down in places that I'm not going to tell anybody about because they're from me in source, right? So it was really, when I was like, oh, you're transitioning right now because you did the work, you didn't put it on anybody else's shoulders, you're finding grace, you're learning love, and you're asking source to meet you. And source is saying, finally. So like that's the transition. It's in knowing that the duality is representative of how high you're gonna go. Like if I wanna go higher, I have to be prepared for these other lows. They're not necessarily related. They just, when I go lower, I have to understand what's coming with me and what's not because I don't have enough luggage to take everything where I'm going. Mm-hmm. So that's the transition. But just a couple of things.
You said a lot quickly.
Because it's the only way to say it. It's the only way to say it. If I'm going to say it, I have to say it all in its entirety because it needs to it all lives together. It's all tied to not a past version of myself, but it's all tied to past beliefs. It's all tied to things I had to unlearn in order to learn. Mm-hmm.
And don't you find that is like a constant thing, like the unlearning, like just even when you think you recognize that there's something else comes along that reveals that there was more or a different, like it's the unknowing that seems to be growing more than the knowing.
And that can be really dope.
Yeah.
I'm no longer willing to subscribe to the idea that that's the uncomfortable thing. Because if I look at where I was in any other area of my life, I start with saying, thank you, Hannah. Thank you for everything you did because I get to be here now. I always start with that because I don't want to start with judging. Back to the grace. But then it's like, don't think that when you know things, that's going to represent blessings are on their way to you. If anything, it's the opposite. Even when you meet people, if you meet someone that's a know-it-all, right? Dating myself, but I love that phrase, like talk to the hand too. Like if you meet someone that knows it all, you're just like, ugh, okay, then there's nowhere for us to go. Don't you think life is saying the same thing to you?
Yeah.
Like to be okay with just curating life with life, let that be exciting. There's nothing, whether you go that way or that way, there's still nothing in your way besides you. So like, it's still your choice. I'm just gonna choose to dance with life.